Hello, everybody, and welcome. And we're here to do some cybersecurity learning. More specifically, we're doing beginners cybersecurity, what some people might consider pre-cybersecurity. Just getting up to some beginner skills. Today, we're going to be working through a educational module on the TryHackMe website. It is this one right here called Linux Fundamentals Part 1. So this is an extra credit class that's associated with the HackerFrogs AfterSchool Linux OS Operations Workshop number 2. And this is the extra credit live stream session. So we're going to be working through this room right here. If you want to participate, you'll need to have a working account over at tryhackme.com. I'm going to leave the link for the module that we're going to be working through in the chat right here. So you can find it over there. Otherwise, it's going to be tryhackme.com/room/Linux Fundamentals Part 1. I'm going to turn down the volume on the music a little bit. Okay, that should be. So I just want a little bit of background music while we work through the room, but for everybody else, you can listen to a little bit of music. So everybody, if you have an account over at tryhackme.com, please type tryhackme in the chat, just like this. Maybe with a smiley, because I really like to see smileys in the chat. It's just kind of my thing. All right, so once you've logged into the tryhackme.com website, and you can go over to the room link over here, and the first thing you need to do is you need to click on the green join room button in order to access the materials there. So just click on that. And it's just going to give you access to the rest of the materials on this page. Okay, so let's work through. So there are 9 tasks associated with this room. We're going to be keeping track. Keeping track of our progress in the room with our little counter over above my avatar's head. It says workshop progress 0 out of 9. By the time we get to 9 out of 9, we'll have finished this workshop, and that'll signal the beginning of the end for the stream. So what are we talking about? Let's talk about our introduction to Linux over here. If you've followed us since for the rest of the live streams for this series, we've been learning about Linux, but we've only been doing it kind of in a limited way because we're working through some of the problems and solving challenges as part of the Bandit CTF, which is part of the over-the-wire network. But here we're going to be working with some more fundamental Linux commands. Let's read through this really quick. So welcome to the first part of the Linux Fundamentals Room series. You're most likely using a Windows or Mac machine. Both are different in visual design and how they operate. Just like Windows, iOS, and Mac OS, Linux is just another operating system and one of the most popular in the world, powering smart cars, Android devices, supercomputers, home appliances, enterprise servers, and more. We'll be covering some of the history behind Linux and eventually starting your journey of being a Linux wizard. This room will have you running your first commands in an interactive Linux machine in your browser, teaching you some of the essential commands used to interact with the file system, and introduce you to how users and groups work in Linux and what this means for us as penetration testers. Well, that's a bit that's getting a bit ahead of ourselves, asking us to be penetration testers, but what we need to do in this first task is just click on the completed button over here, and then we'll have completed the task. All right, so now that we've finished task 1, let's update our workshop progress. So we've gone from 0 out of 9 to 1 out of 9. Congratulations, everybody. Okay, so we're going to move on to task 2, where we talk a little bit about the background of Linux. All right, so where is Linux used? It's fair to say that Linux is a lot more intimidating to approach than operating systems such as Windows. Both variants have their own advantages and disadvantages. For example, Linux is considered much more lightweight, and you'd be surprised to know that there's a good chance you've used Linux in some form or another every day. Linux powers things such as websites that you visit, car entertainment / control panels, point of sale, POS systems such as checkout, tills, and registers in shops, and critical infrastructure such as traffic light controllers or industrial sensors. All right, so what are the different flavors of Linux? So Linux, there are a bunch of different types of Linux. The name Linux is actually an umbrella term for multiple OSs that are based on Unix, another operating system. Thanks to Unix being open source, variants of Linux come in all shapes and sizes, suited best for what the system is being used for. For example, Ubuntu and Debian are some of the more commonplace distributions of Linux because it is so extensible. That is, you can run Ubuntu as a server, such as websites and web applications, or as a fully fledged desktop. For this series, we're going to be using Ubuntu. Ubuntu server can run on systems with only 512 megabytes of RAM. So that's not a lot of RAM. So in a lot of cases, the system requirements, the hardware requirements for Linux computers and Linux systems is a lot less than for other operating systems such as Windows. So similar to how you have different versions of Windows, 7, 8, and 10, there are many different versions / distributions of Linux. So a version of Linux or a type of Linux is called a distribution. So that's just something we should keep in mind. So what year was the first release of a Linux operating system? All right, so right here, if we want to answer this question, I do believe the answer is 1991. Okay, all right. And if we didn't know that answer, we could ask this question to our good friend ChatGPT. So if we're to copy this and then go to ChatGPT and then just paste this into the prompt. Okay, so it says here that it was in 1991. All right. So just another way we can use ChatGPT to help us out on our cybersecurity journey. All right, so we finished task 2, so let's update our workshop progress. We're now on we finished part 2 of 9, we're now on task 3. Okay, so this room has a Ubuntu Linux machine that you can interact with all within your browser whilst following along with this room's material. However, to get started, simply press the green Start Machine button on the top right of this task, indicated by the arrow on the right. So there's an arrow pointing up here at this Start Machine button over here. What you need to do is click on the Start Machine button, and then that's going to start up our virtual machine with our Ubuntu Linux terminal. Okay, so it's going to take a little while to initialize over here. There's a countdown, but afterwards we're going to be able to access it, and I'll show you how when after this countdown finishes. All right, so this contains all the information for the machine deployed in the room, including the IP address and expiry timer, along with buttons to manage the machine. Remember to terminate a machine once you're done with the room. So you should terminate a virtual machine associated with the Track Me website after you're finished with it. That's only polite because while the virtual machine is turned on, it's using up resources and costing TryHackMe money to run those servers. So let's try to be nice and remember to terminate machines when we're finished with them. So more information on this can be found in the tutorial room. All right, so we press the Start Machine button where we can interact with the Linux machine. So we just need to wait a little bit. I think it should be available now. So what we can do if the window doesn't split into two is we can go up to the top of the web page, and then we can click on this blue button right here that says Show Split View. Okay, and we can see that it's not quite done yet initializing. So we can go back down and read a little bit more. So the only question here is to answer the question, I've deployed my first Linux machine. Well, it's not quite done yet, but we can click on completed, this button over here, and then that finishes the task. So we can update our workshop progress, and we can say that we finished the third part of the workshop. Great, great, great. Okay, so we see in here that the Linux terminal has finished initializing. Okay, so when our screen is split up like this, we have the web page on the left-hand pane of the browser window, and we have the Linux terminal on the right-hand pane of the Linux terminal of the browser window. But what we can do is we can put the terminal here in its own browser window, and we can do so by clicking on this button right here, which is labeled View in Full Screen, which is right here. So click on that, and it's going to open up. So we want to press Allow so that we can copy and paste stuff from this terminal. But now this terminal has its own web browser tab, and if we go back to the original tab, we see that the split view is here, but we can close this by clicking on this button right here, which is labeled Exit Split View. Okay, and now we have a full screen tab with our TryHackMe webpage and a full screen tab with our Linux terminal. All right, so we can go on with task number 4. So at the top of the task here, it says, as we previously discussed, a large selling point of using OSs such as Ubuntu is how lightweight they are. This, of course, does not come without its disadvantages. For example, often there is no GUI, graphic user interface, or what is known as a desktop environment that we can use to interact with the machine unless it's been installed. A large part of interacting with the system is using the terminal. So the Linux CLI command line interface can also be called a terminal, and some people use these terms interchangeably. There is a difference between a shell and a CLI and a terminal, but we won't be going into the details right now. But for now, we can just refer to this view right here as a terminal. Okay, so the terminal is purely text-based and is intimidating at first. However, if we break down some of the commands, after some time, you'll quickly become familiar with using the terminal. So the terminal looks like this. You'll have a prompt over here, and then you can enter some commands over here. So here we see that the prompt over here is TryHackMe at Linux 1. So what this is the name of the user. The name of the user at, and then the name of the server. So the name of the server is Linux 1, and we are the user TryHackMe. Okay? So we need to be able to do some basic functions like navigate to files, output their contents, and make files. The commands to do so are self-explanatory, once you know what they are, of course. All right, so let's get started with two of the first commands, which I have broken down in the table below. There's the echo command, which outputs any text that we provide, and there's the who am I command, which lets you find out which user you're currently logged in as. Okay, so let's practice using these commands inside of our terminal. So inside the terminal, you can type who am I, and then enter, and it says that you're the TryHackMe user. So we know this from the prompt over here. Okay, and there's also the echo command. So the echo command is going to simply repeat what we give to it as an argument. So let's see. So we could say like, and so we can put it in quotes, like and subscribe to the Shy Hats channel. Okay, and then that's what it's going to echo out. Sorry for the plug. All right, so back on the web page, we can answer some questions. So if we wanted to output the text TryHackMe, what would our command be? So what we saw here was that we could just use echo. We could probably just use echo TryHackMe to get that that kind of output, right? So if we echo try hack me, okay, it echoes out just the word try hack me. So we can copy this from the terminal. Whoops, let's just copy it exactly here. And I do believe you have to use Control-Shift-C to copy it. And that should be copied. We go back to the web page, and then we can paste it in with Control-V. And then we click the Submit button. Okay, so that is the correct answer. And what is the username of who you're logged in as in your deployed Linux machine? Well, we know we can get this answer by using the whoami command. Okay, and that is try hack me. So the username is try hack me. And we're going to enter that as the answer here. Try hack me. Submit that. Okay, and now we finished task 4 inside this room. So we're going to update the workshop progress. And then we're going to move on to the next task. Okay, so task 5 is interacting with the file system. All right. So let's see. So far we've only covered the echo and whoami commands. Not all that useful when you consider things that we need to do, including navigating the file system, reading and writing to it as well. Okay, in this task, we're going to be learning the commands so you can do just that. Just like in the previous task, I'll display the commands in the table in the next heading and show examples of these commands being used. So what commands are we going to be using to interact with the file system? As I previously stated, being able to navigate the machine that you're logged into without relying on a desktop environment is pretty important. After all, what's the point of logging in if you can't go anywhere? So we're going to go over the following commands: ls, which lists the directory contents. There's cd, which is going to let us change directories from one location to another. We're going to use the cat command, which is concatenate, which incidentally reads the files that we supply as the argument. And we're going to use the pwd command, which is going to print the working directory that is the current directory that we're in. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is learn how to list files in the current directory, which is ls. Before we can do anything such as finding out the contents of any files or folders, we need to know what exists in the first place. Okay, this is done using the ls command. So ls stands for list or listing. So if we go to the terminal and we do ls, okay, so we see that there are, some files in here. There's this access.log file, and there are 3 directories in here. So there's folder 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if we were to use ls and then use the LA flag after it, then we would get this the file contents, the directory contents in list order. So we can see that in a list form, which is often more helpful than just seeing them in their default state. All right, so to everybody who might be here, get here a little bit later, we're working on this particular module right now that I'm putting in the chat. If you want to join in, you can, first of all, you need to be registered at the tryhackme.com website. And then you go to the link, which is tryhackme.com/room/Linux Fundamentals Part 1. Okay, so we finished using the ls command to get the contents of the current directory. But here's a pro tip: you can list the contents of a directory without having to navigate it by using ls in the name of the directory. Okay, so for example here, we know that there's a folder 1. If we wanted to list out the contents of folder 1, we can just do ls and then folder 1. And we see it's empty. I think, are all of these folders empty? Let's ls and then folder 4. Okay, there's a note.txt file inside of folder 4 because we use list ls with folder 4. All right, let's go back to the web page and see what else it has in store for us. So next we have changing our current directory, cd. So now that we know that what folders exist, we need to use the cd command, short for change directory, to change to that directory. Say if I wanted to open the pictures directory, I do cd space pictures, where again we want to find out the contents of this pictures directory, and so we would use the ls command again. Okay, so in this case, the user uses ls and inside of the pictures directory and see that there's a bunch of JPEGs in here. Let's try this ourselves. Okay, so if we wanted to, so ls shows us that we have these different folders, these different directories in here. So if we were to go to folder 4, so we know what we can get there because ls showed us the contents of the directory. So we go cd to go to folder 4, and then if we wanted to check which directory we're in, we could use the pwd command, which prints the working directory, and it says that we're in home try-hackney folder 4. I'm going to clear the terminal output so we can go back to the top of the screen. Okay, and if we type ls, we see that there's a note.txt file in here. All right, very good. So we're going to output the contents of a file. So this is also known as reading a file, and we do this with the cat command. Whilst knowing about the existence of files is great, it's not all that useful unless we are able to view the contents of them. We will come on to discuss some of the tools available that allow us to transfer files from one machine to another in a later room, but for now we're going to talk about simply seeing the contents of text files using a command called cat. Cat is short for concatenate and is a fantastic way for us to output the contents of files, not just text files. In the screenshot below, you can see that I've combined the use of ls to list the files within a directory called documents. Okay, so in here, in the terminal here, they use ls to see that there's a todo.txt file in here, and then they use the command cat todo.txt, and it says here's something important for me to do later. Okay, so basically what we need to do, what we need to know is that we can use the cat file to read files that are in the directory. Okay, so we see here that there is a note file inside of folder 4 in this directory, folder 4 here. So we can do cat note.txt to read it. Okay, and the note file, the contents of that is hello world. All right, so we've successfully read the file using the cat command. And next we're going to find out the full path to our current working directory, pwd. So you'll notice as you progress through navigating your Linux machine that the name of the directory that you're currently working in will be listed in the terminal. It's easy to lose track of where you are in the file system exactly, which is why I want to introduce pwd, and this stands for print working directory. So I've also been taught that it stands for present working. No, it is print working directory, but you can also think of it as present working directory, which is the directory that you're in right now. Using the example machine from before, we are currently in the documents folder, but where is this exactly on the Linux machine's file system? We can find this out using the pwd command like the screenshot below. Okay, so inside of here, if we do pwd, we see that where we are is in the directory /home/try-hackney/folder 4. Okay, so the pwd command lets you know where you are in the file system. Okay, so we're going to answer the questions. So on the Linux machine that you deploy, how many folders are there? Okay, so I think they're referring to the 4 folders that we see in our home directory. So we're currently in folder 4. To go back one level, back to our home directory, we would do cd and then ... Inside of Linux, ... refers to the directory directly above the present working directory, the current directory. So if we cd to ... it's going to bring us up one level to our home directory. We use the pwd command to confirm this. So we're in home/try-hackney. So it's asking us how many folders there are. So if we ls, we see that there is 1, 2, 3, 4 folders. That is the answer to the question. So we supply 4 as the answer. Okay, and it asks us which directory contains a file. So we know from our previous experience, if we list the contents of folder 4, that there's a file in this directory? So the answer is folder 4. Okay, and what is the contents of this file? All right, so we would use the cat command to read that file, right? What we can do is, even if we're not inside the folder 4 directory, we can read the note.txt file, and we can do that by doing cat folder 4 / note.txt. So this is a relative file path, so it's basically inside of this directory, in folder 4, there's note.txt, and that we should read that. Okay, if we run the command, we get the result, which is hello world, in this format, so that is the answer. So we can just go here and okay, so everybody, I hope you're following along all right. If you have any questions about any of the commands that we're running, or if you have any problems with running the room, or encounter any errors or other issues, please let me know, and I'll try to help you out and troubleshoot your problems. Okay, so we're going to use the cd command to navigate to this file and find out the new current working directory. What is the path? So if we go to cd, if we go to folder 4, and then when we've arrived at the folder 4 directory, and then we use the pwd command, we see that this is the current directory we're in right here. So /home/tryacme folder 4. So we can highlight this, and then we can Control-Shift-C to copy it. And then we can paste on the web page, we can paste this in as the answer. And then click Submit. Okay, so we finished task 5. So we can go to Workshop Progress and update this. And now we can do task 6, which is searching for files. So I'm gonna switch my playlist to something a little more upbeat. Hold on. Let's go to the musical experiments playlist. Okay, sorry about that. I just wanted to change up the music a little bit. Okay, so we're doing task 6, searching for files. Although it doesn't seem like it so far, one of the redeeming features of Linux is truly how efficient you can be with it. With that said, you can only be as efficient as you are familiar with it, of course. As you interact with OSs such as Ubuntu, over time, essential commands like those we've already covered will start to become muscle memory. One fantastic way to show how efficient you can be with a system like this is to use a set of commands to quickly search for files across the entire system that our user has access to. No need to constantly use cd and ls to find out what is where. Instead, we will use commands such as find to automate things like this for us. This is where Linux starts to become a bit more intimidating to approach, but we'll break this down and ease you into it. Okay, so how do we use find? The find command is fantastic in the sense that it can be used to both very simply or rather complexly, depending on what it is you want to do exactly. However, let's stick to the fundamentals first. Take the snippet below. We can see a list of directories available to us. Okay, so we use the ls command, and then we see that there are these different directories inside of this directory right here. Okay, we can use the find command to find specific types of files. Okay, so here there's an example, so we can use the find command and then -name to specify a name, and then in this case it's passwords.txt. Okay, so we can try this ourselves to find a potential file called passwords.txt. I'll teach you a slightly different version of this command. So it's find, and then we have to specify a place in the file system to look for. In this case, we use the slash, which indicates the entire file system. And then we're going to dash name to indicate a file name. So if we look for passwords.txt, we can run that, and it's going to look for in the entire file system files called passwords.txt. But what we're going to do is we're going to output all of the errors or permission denied messages, which is going to happen a lot when we use the find command, to this place right here, which is dev/null, which means all the error messages, we're going to have them deleted and we're not going to see them. If we don't run it with this, I'll show you what happens. So if we run this, we see a bunch of permission denied messages when we run the command. So this is taking a little longer than I would like. Oh, so it's finished now. Okay, great. Okay, so we see a bunch of permission denied messages when we run the find command. That's because our user doesn't have access to the entire file system. So we can use this portion of the command to greater than and then /dev/null, and that means we're going to search the file system and we're not going to see any of these permission denied messages or other error messages. Inside of Linux, to refers to error messages, otherwise known as standard error. So when we run this command, we no longer see any error messages, but we also don't see any results because there's no file called passwords.txt in the file system. What we can do is we can just look for any old text file, and we can do that by doing star.txt. Star, in this case, means anything. So any name and then .txt. So star.txt means any name.txt. And this will return any text files in the file system. Okay, so if we run this, we see that there's only one text file, and that is in this directory right here, /home/tryhackme folder 4 note. Okay. All right, so right over here, it's basically explaining the same things that we were doing before. The next thing we're going to learn is we're going to learn how to use grep. Okay, so another great utility that is a great one to learn about the use for is grep. The grep command allows us to search for contents of files for specific values that we're looking for. So take, for example, the access log of a web server. In this case, the access.log of a web server has 244 entries. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're using the wc command to see how many lines there are in access.log. And in this case, it says 244. That's not going to cut it too well here. And let's say, for example, we wanted to search this log file to see things that are a certain user/IP address. Okay, inside of the log. Looking through 244 entries isn't that efficient considering we want to find a specific value. So that's where grep comes in. So we can use grep to search through the entire contents of this file for any entries of the value that we're searching for. Okay, so for anybody who has arrived here a little bit later, we're currently working on this TryHackMe room. You do need and I'm providing the link in chat for you guys right now. You will need a TryHackMe account in order to access the room, but you don't have to pay any money for the account. So if you want to join in, please go ahead. And if you are, please let us know so that we can help you catch up. Okay, so we're talking about grep. So we can use grep to search the entire contents of a file for any entries of the value that we're searching for. So going with the example of the web server's access log, we want to see everything that is the IP address, this one over here, and to see that if it's visited. Note that this is fictional. Okay, so we can use the grep. We can use grep for within a file to look for specific entries. Okay, so for example, if we go to the terminal and we go back to our home directory, which is, we can go to the home directory for a user by simply using the tilde command. So, sorry, not the tilde command, but the use cd to tilde. Tilde is the shifted version of the backtick, which is usually located to the left of the 1 key on the keyboard. So cd tilde, and tilde refers to the home directory of the current user. Okay, so if we pwd after doing that, we see that we're in home/tryhackme. All right, and in this directory, there's the access.log file. So if we were to, I'm going to clear the screen. So if we were to grep into that file, so grep, and what are we looking for? So if we're looking for Mozilla, actually let's read the log file first. So to read the log file, cat access.log. Okay, there's a bunch of different entries over here. Okay, and if we wanted to look for one specific entry, I guess, if we wanted to look for all instances of this particular IP address, we could use grep. Oh, that's my phone. Let me put it on silent so it doesn't bother us for the rest of the stream. Okay, I'm going to put it on silent. Okay, so grep. So grep, and we're going to look for that particular IP address, maybe 3.18.18.132, and we're going to do on access.log. Okay, so if we run this command, it's going to give us all lines where this particular IP address exists, or whatever string that you feed to the grep command. Okay, so let's answer the questions in this task. So we're going to use grep on access.log, okay, to find the flag that is the prefix of THM. So flags are usually the goals in different cybersecurity CTF challenges, and CTF stands for capture the flag. So we're looking for a flag, and the flag is going to start with this THM prefix. So how do we look for that? Inside of our terminal, I'm going to clear it first. We know that the access.log file is in here. We're going to grep inside of it. So grep access.log, and after grep, we need to supply the search term. So we're going to give the search term inside of these quotes, just so that we don't get it mixed up. And we're looking for the term THM. So when we run the command, grep is going to give us every line inside of access.log that has this particular text in it. Okay, so when we run the file, we see that this line right here matches, and the flag is THM and then access. So a flag usually is going to be a prefix like THM and then some curly brackets with something inside. So we highlight the entire flag here, and this is the entire flag, and then we do Control-Shift-C to copy, and then we go back to the TryHackMe page and supply this as the answer for the question. So submit, and that's it. And I still haven't found what I'm looking for. I think that's a line from a song. I'm not sure which one. Click on completed, and we're finished that task. So we've completed task 6. So I'm going to update the workshop progress. And all right, we're on to task 7. So this is the last task before we're effectively finished the room. So let's learn about, what is this called? Shell operators. So Linux operators are a fantastic way to power up your knowledge of working with Linux. There are a few important operators that are worth noting. So we'll cover the basics and break them down accordingly to bite-sized chunks. So at an overview, I'm going to be showcasing the following operators. Okay, so we're going to be operating the AND operator, the double AND operator, the greater than operator, and the double greater than operator. So the AND operator is going to allow you to run commands in the background of your terminal. So this is important if you want to run a command that's going to take a long time to complete, but you still want to use the terminal while the command is running. So this AND operator is going to let you do that. The next one is the double AND operator, and this operator allows you to combine multiple commands together in one line in your terminal. So this is good for if you want to run multiple commands one after the other. So this is the double AND operator. Okay, the next one is the greater than operator. This operator is a redirector, meaning that we can take output from the command, such as using cat to output a file, and direct it elsewhere. In previous workshops, we've used this to redirect output into a file, the password file for the bandit CTF passwords. So, and there's the double greater than operator. This operator does the same function as the greater than operator, but appends the output rather than replacing, meaning that nothing is ever written. So the difference between these two is that this one is going to overwrite the contents of whatever file that we write to if the file already exists. But this one is going to add to the file if it already exists. Okay, so the AND operator allows us to execute commands in the background. So say we want to copy a large file, leave us unable to do anything until the file successfully copies. The AND shell operator allows us to execute a command and have it run in the background, such as file copy, allowing us to do other things. Okay, so in the terminal, if we wanted to use the AND operator to run the command in the background, for example, if we wanted to run find inside of the entire file system over here, and we're going to look for subscribe the Shy Hats Twitch and YouTube channels .txt. And so if we were to search for this, and we're also going to put the error messages to dev null. So obviously it's not going to find this, but if we use the AND operator at the end of this, we can run this, and it's going to be given the process ID of 1116, and it's going to run in the background. And if it finds anything, it'll tell us inside of the terminal. But we see that while it's running, we can still use the terminal to do ls or who am I. Okay, and it actually successfully completed, so it exits with 1. Okay, great. So that's the AND operator. So the double AND operator is that it's not related to the AND operator, but it's going to do command 1. If we use command 1 and command 2, then command 1 is going to finish, and then command 2 is going to start and finish. So for example, if I do, let's see, so right now we're in home try hack me, okay? And we've got folder 1 in here. So if we do cd folder 1 to go into the folder, and then we do and then we do and pwd, then it's going to go into folder 1, and then pwd is going to show that we're in folder 1 instead of home/tryhackme. Okay, so if we do this, so it says that the pwd says that we're in /home/tryhackme/folder 1 because it was executed after we cd into folder 1. Okay, so that's also quite useful. The next one is the greater than operator, and so we're going to let me demonstrate what we can use with this operator here. So a lot of times we use the echo command to create short little text files. So we can echo test and then greater than into test.txt, and that's going to create a file called test.txt with the input of the echo command for test, which means that just test is going to be in the directory. Okay, so if we run with ls, that there is a test.txt file in the directory. If we use cat to read it, we see that it says test over here. But if we run the echo command again, and remember you can run previous commands with the up and down arrow keys. So say if I wanted to echo test1 into test.txt, just like this, again, if we run that, and then we cat test.txt, we say it says test1, sorry. So it says test1 and test was deleted. That's because this particular operator is going to overwrite a file if the file already exists. But if we use the double greater than symbol, we can do echo test1 and then double greater than symbol to test.txt, and then maybe we want to do echo 2 and then echo 3, echo test3. Okay, if we read test.txt, we see that these different entries have been appended to the file instead of overwriting the contents. And that's what the double greater than operator does. So we were using the double greater than operator when we were writing the passwords to the banditpass.txt file. So that's that operator. And so this is just explaining what I was demonstrating just now. Okay, so we're going to answer the questions. So if we wanted to run a command in the background, what operator would we want to use? All right, so does anybody want to answer the question before I answer it myself? So I'll give you 20 seconds. I think the stream is delayed by 20 seconds for everybody here. But if you want to answer, if we wanted to run a command in the background, what operator would we want to use? I'll give you 20 seconds to answer. And while we're waiting, I'm going to switch up the music a little bit. Oh, this is nice. Okay, so I don't see any answers. So if we remember, we use the and or ampersand symbol to run a command in the background. And the second question is, if I wanted to replace the contents of a file named passwords with the word password123, what would my command be? Okay, so if you remember, we are using the echo command. So echo, and then the contents, which is password123. So that's the second part of the command. And we would need to use the greater than operator to overwrite the contents of the file in a file called passwords. So this is the answer that we're looking for right here. We could click submit and it's finished. So the next question is, now if I wanted to add tryhackme to this file named passwords, but also keep passwords123, what would my command be? So if you remember just now, when you want to append to a file, to add to a file, you don't use the greater than operator. So in this case, the answer would be echo, and then tryhackme, and then double greater than, and then passwords. So that's going to append instead of replacing because we're using the double greater than operator. So we would click the submit to submit the answer. And then it says, now use the deployed Linux machine to put these into practice. Well, we can do exactly what they asked us to do, which is, what was it? Echo tryhackme, double greater than, and then passwords. And then we see that we have two files now. We have a passwords file and a test file. So, and we can read each of these files. Actually, we can read both of these files by using cat star. And if you remember from a previous example, star means every file. So every file, in this case, it means every file in the directory. So if we cat star, we cat, and that cat command will read every file in the directory. So it reads tryhackme from passwords and then test123 from test.txt. All right, so that is about it for today's workshop. But let me fulfill my OCD by clicking on these summaries and stuff and updating the workshop progress. So it says, nice work on getting to this stage. We've covered quite a bit for your first interactions with Linux. However, these are the most essential functions you're going to be used when you interact with a Linux machine. I hope this room hasn't been too daunting for you to power on through with. As I previously mentioned, you're going to become familiar with these things very quickly because of how often you're going to be using them. To quickly recap, we've covered the following. So understanding why Linux is so commonplace today, interacting with your first Linux machine, ran some of the most fundamental commands, had an introduction to navigating around a file system and how to use commands like find and grep to make finding data even more efficient, and power up your commands by learning some of the most important shell operators. Okay, take some time to have a play around the room. When you're a little more comfortable, progress onto Linux Fundamentals Part 2. So there is a Part 2 to this particular Try Hack Me room. If you feel like practicing some more, you can definitely go there and try out that room. But for now, we can click on Completed, which is going to complete Part 8 of the workshop. And then Linux Fundamentals Part 2. We need to terminate the machine deployed in this room from task 3. Okay, so we're going to click Completed on that. We need to terminate the virtual machine that we activated when we were doing this room, and we can do that by clicking on this button right here, which is labeled Terminate. Okay, so you'll see that we've been disconnected inside of our other tab. We're going to exit this tab and join Linux Fundamentals Part 2. We can also click Completed on this. Okay, so we've completed the room. We see some Canvetti. Congratulations, great. Okay, so I'm going to update the workshop progress just so I can say I did it. I'm just a little bit concerned about this because I haven't been remembering to update the workshop progress in some previous workshops. But all right, before we go, I'm going to remind you guys of some things. So I run a YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, you obviously know this. It's the Shy Hat, and we're trying to get more people to come to our page and watch our videos. We have a bunch of videos on basic cybersecurity fundamentals, such as our web app hacking series of videos, which was our green videos. We have our blue videos, which are on Python programming over here, and we have the series that we're doing right now, Linux OS operations, which is our red series of videos. Okay, so to anybody who's interested in joining in with HackerFrogs AfterSchool as a beginning cybersecurity student, you can also go to our Reddit page, which is reddit.com/r/HackerFrogs. So if you have any questions or any comments you want to make about beginner cybersecurity, or if you want to ask some questions about how to go about your cybersecurity education journey, please come to our subreddit at r/HackerFrogs and come make some comments. We've got a bunch of threads on different beginner cybersecurity topics. And another thing you can do if you're looking into cybersecurity is you can ask our good friend ChatGPT. I'm finding that ChatGPT is helping me a lot more these days when I want to learn about esoteric questions about different Linux commands or how technology works. I ask ChatGPT a lot of questions every day, and I think it'll be a great assistant when you're trying to learn about how to get into cybersecurity. All right, so right. So if you want to get into the lifestyle components of getting into this whole cybersecurity thing, there are some podcasts you can listen to, which are also really great for immersing yourself into the cybersecurity lifestyle. So, for example, there's one called Smashing Security, which is a great podcast, which you can find at smashingsecurity.com, and they do a podcast every week that covers a bunch of security topics in a kind of lighthearted manner. It is not super technical. It is not super heavy, and they usually try to find some humor in each one of the topics, which I really appreciate. But for a little bit of a more serious vibe, we have Darknet Diaries, which you can find at darknetdiaries.net. Oh, is it not here? Let me just Google it. Darknet Diaries. Okay, so it's darknetdiaries.com. And this is a very popular cybersecurity podcast, which talks about a bunch of true stories from the dark side of the internet, it says here. So this podcast is about hackers, breaches, shadow government activity, hacktivism, cybercrime, and all the things that dwell on the hidden parts of the network. This is Darknet Diaries. This was a great introduction to cybersecurity, and there are a lot of great stories on this podcast. Some of the ones that I recommend, maybe I'll search for. I think it had to do with the NSA, I think, and it was about the shadow brokers. Okay, so this is a great episode right now about the NSA and the shadow brokers, and I won't spoil it, but check out episode 53, Shadow Brokers. It's a great story if you want to learn about some of the more interesting stories that came out of the whole cybersecurity community. But with that, all right, everybody, thank you very much for tuning in today. I hope you had some fun. I hope you learned some stuff. Once again, if you wanted to learn about what we did in today's stream, you can always go to the Try Hack Me page. And the module is called Linux Fundamentals Part 1. I've left a link in there for you guys. But until next time, this has been the Shy Hat, and we've been doing the HackerFrogs program, and this is extra credit for Linux OS Operations Workshop 2. We'll be back on Monday, where we're going to be doing the last workshop for Linux OS Operations. We're also going to be covering a Track Me room in that. One last thing. So if you wanted to play around with more Linux terminals, you can use this resource right here, which is called JS Linux. And on the so it's bellard.org/JSLinux. I'll leave the link in the description here, in the chat. What you can do is you can spin up a web browser-based Linux terminal. And this is a great resource if you wanted to just play around inside of a Linux terminal in a safe environment. So this is a fully functional Linux terminal which exists inside of the web browser, and you can just play around in here when you're just learning how to use Linux, and it's a great resource. I really appreciate the people over at this organization right here, bellard.org. Okay, so that's it, everybody. We'll be back on Monday where we're doing the last Linux OS Operations Workshop, number 3. Until then, have a great rest of the week. And if you have any questions, of course, come to our Reddit page, r/HackerFrogs, and ask us. Until next time, this has been the Shy Hat, and have a great week.